Imagine you're out helping a community you're visiting from a foreign land. You know the government doesn't really want you there, but the people do. And then suddenly someone comes running into the village, shouting that soldiers are coming to take you away. But this isn't that uncommon, and every other time this has happened, it's been a false alarm, so it's really just a kid crying wolf. But this time, they were coming. Next thing you know, there are soldiers approaching the town. You try to hide, but somehow they find you and take you away. Thoughts race through your mind. What will they do? Will I see my friends and family again? Why is this happening now? That's exactly what happened to John Gabriel Perboyre, and soon you'll learn the details surrounding this interesting man's life. Howdy all, and welcome back to another episode of the Sanctified Podcast, the show where we explore the stories of various saints throughout history and learn about what they did and how we came to recognize them as saints today. Today, we're going to explore the life of St. John Gabriel Perboyre, a missionary and a visionary. John Gabriel was born in Lot, France in the year 1802. He had 7 siblings, and his parents, Pierre and Martyr, owned a farm. And as we've seen with other saints, he really had no exceptional devotion to his faith. He just kind of lived his life. And as I learned more and more about saints, there are plenty who led average or even bad lives, but they changed their ways and they became role models and, well, saints. So it's never too late for somebody to decide to make a change. In 1816, John Gabriel's life was about to change, but he didn't see it coming. It was actually his younger brother, Louis, who wanted to be a part of the Vincentian seminary, and that had recently been founded by their uncle, Jacques. Pierre and Marie were worried about their little boy traveling on his own and starting something new, so they decided that they needed to send somebody with them, and they asked John if he would go. John gladly agreed, and he accompanied his little brother to the seminary. And as he spent more time there, letting his brother ease in, he felt drawn to that life more and more. And the instructors at the seminary noticed this, and they noticed that he was fairly intelligent too. So they invited him to join the seminary as well. John Gabriel did like the idea, but he wanted to talk to his parents first because he knew that every little bit of help made a huge difference back on the farm. He wrote a letter to his parents explaining that he felt this calling and to eventually serve God as a priest. His parents supported him, and he joined his brother at the Vincentian seminary. In the end, a total of 5 of the 8 children joined either the Vincentian Fathers or the Daughters of Charity. 2 years later, in 1818, John Gabriel joined the novitiate of the Congregation of the Mission, part of the Vincentians. And 2 more years later, he made the congregation's vows on the Feast of the Holy Innocents. These vows are poverty, chastity, obedience, and stability. The former 3 are pretty standard across the board for all priests, but the final one, stability, is partially unique to the Vincentians. It essentially means that people will become the foundation for others' faith and a boulder to lean on in challenging times. And while standard priests do act as such, the Vincentians make a very strong point to be that boulder. He was ordained as a priest on September 23, 1826, in the chapel of the Daughters of Charity by Louis Dubois. Dubois was a Sulpician missionary who had just become the new bishop of Montauban, and John Gabriel had been hoping for a while to be sent on missions himself, so it was kind of special for him. And the day after he was ordained, he celebrated Mass for the first time. He was assigned as the teacher of theology at the Seminary of St. Flour, and he was actually pretty gifted as a teacher. But this position did take its toll on him, and he grew tired and his health wasn't really the greatest. So later in 1832, he was assigned to be the assistant spiritual director at the Congregation of the Missionaries Seminary. Though this was a similar role, he really wasn't as stressed, and his health began to improve, but he still desired to be sent on missions more than any other assignment that he had been given thus far. Eventually, his persistence paid off. When he heard his brother Louis had been sent on a mission and perished while traveling to his mission, John Gabriel felt that it was his duty to complete his brother's mission. He asked again, and he was finally granted approval for this mission. Where was this mission going, you may ask? It was going to China, specifically Henan, China. John Gabriel arrived in Macau, China in August of 1835. and there he began to study the Chinese language. Could you imagine only starting to study a new language once you got there? Just because there really wasn't an option for him to study it back in France. It's a pretty daunting task to be like, I want to go there. I have no idea how to communicate with anybody, but I'm going to go. So, John Gabriel was very committed to his cause. Just a few months later, in December of that same year, he started his trek to Henan, or rather his voyage, as he rode on a Chinese junk ship, which is a type of ship, not a ship for hauling trash. It took a while to arrive in Henan, but when he arrived and settled in, he began helping serve those in need in the region as fast as he could, and he did as much as he could. He did get sick while in Henan, and it took a while to recover, so his efforts were slowed, but his flame was not extinguished. Far from it. When he recovered, he got right back into his work and traveled throughout the province. When January of 1838 rolled around, John Gabriel was transferred to the mission in Hubei. He carried out the same work there as he did in Henan over the next year and a half. During this time, he was a victim to spiritual attacks, feeling as though he wasn't doing enough work despite his profound success in the region. And he even said that he had been attacked by demons at various points during his services. One day, he was praying for help and for the feeling of failure to leave him. While praying, he heard Jesus speak to him from the cross, encouraging him to continue his work and reminding him that he had been very successful so far. Reinvigorated, he went out again with a profound zeal. But in September of 1839, persecution against Christians began rising in the region, and John Gabriel was unfortunately a very prime target for them. Emperor Qinglong declared the hunt of Christians, and the Opium War had just broken out between the Chinese and the British, so it was a very turbulent time in the region. John Gabriel's mission center was targeted, and soldiers were sent to arrest the missionaries. They all fled and attempted to hide, with mixed success. One of the catechists was tortured and gave away the locations of the people that he knew. And among those people was John Gabriel. He was dragged from his hiding place and stripped of his robes. They adorned him with loose rags and bound his hands together. And then they marched him to various tribunals in the area, and at each one, he was treated as just something less than human, basically trash. Though he was pushed to the limit, he held on to his faith in God until the very end. They asked him to renounce his faith to be spared. His response? No, I will never renounce the faith of Christ. In Sanyang, he was held in rusty iron chains and hung by his thumbs and hair as torture. He was beaten with bamboo lashes and mocked, but he never renounced his faith. After Sanyang was finished, he was marched to Wuchang, where he went through 20, quote, interrogations. But they really weren't interrogations as much as they were just torture sessions. They were still just trying to get him to renounce his faith. They would beat him mercilessly, but the hardest part for him was when they involved innocent people that he had helped and who had subsequently converted because of his help. He was given numerous opportunities to say that he rejected his faith, but he would never do it. And the last time they asked, his response, I would sooner die than deny my faith. He was set to be executed in Wuchang along with 7 other common criminals. His crime was simply believing in God. He was tied to a cross and strangled to death on the 11th of September in 1840 on Red Mountain. But a catechist later retrieved his body so that he could have a proper burial at his mission cemetery. His death was a strong push to create the clause in the 1842 Treaty of Nanking between Britain and China, which stated that any missionary that was captured was to be returned to his nation's representatives. The cause for John Gabriel Perboyre to be canonized began 5 years after his death, which is the obligatory waiting time now. Being a martyr, there wasn't really a need to prove any miracles, and he was beatified almost 50 years later on November 10th, 1889, by Pope Leo XIII. His canonization, though, wouldn't occur for another century, when he was finally canonized by Pope John Paul II on June 2nd, 1996. Between those ceremonies, his remains were exhumed and transported back to France so he could be buried at the Saint Lazare in Paris. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll do my best to answer them. So, what do you think of St. John Gabriel Perboyre? Wasn't his commitment to his faith inspirational? Even in the face of death, he held firm. I hope you found his story interesting, and I look forward to learning about your thoughts on St. John Gabriel. Thank you for listening. If you would like to support the channel, you can subscribe, download the episode, like, comment, share with your friends, or send me a suggestion on a saint to check out by emailing me at sanctifiedpodcast@proton.me. You can find the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Podbean, and more. Just search for the Sanctified Podcast, and I should have a few episodes uploaded on whatever service you're using. Take care, and have a wonderful day.